Today, let's collect 90's Valiant. Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and another one of our Let's Collect series. These are the videos I do where we look at the key comics, important stories, and fun covers for a comic character or a series. In this case, we're doing kind of a universe. We're focused on 90's Valiant. This was a request from a channel member, He Who Remains. He made this request. That's one of the benefits of being a Nightwing tier channel member. I'll show my channel members here at the end of this video. But as I let you give input on some of the videos I'm making, and this was his request for my next Let's Collect. But I'll be honest, I don't know hardly anything about 90's Valiant before I dug into this. So I reached out to another channel member, my friend Daymers, who basically has collected every Valiant book from the 90's and used him as my guide. So he helped me a ton with this. I had a few additions to make beyond what he put in, but yes, he helped me educate me on my 90's Valiant. Now, before we dig into this, I am focusing exclusively on the Valiant Universe stuff. So I'm not including any of the Nintendo books and stuff that they published. This is a 90's Valiant Universe Let's Collect is what we're focused on here. So none of those Nintendo books and that kind of stuff are part of this. Also, I'm ending it before we shift into the Acclaim era of Valiant. So this is all just the Valiant stuff before it became Acclaim, Valiant, and then none of the modern, like 2015 when they kind of relaunched it, none of those books are included. So this is just strictly the original 90's, but 91 to 96 run of Valiant in its universe that we're going to be focused on today. So hopefully that gives you guys enough ideas. Now, as always, I kind of like give values for these books, but so they're not like immediately outdated because values are always moving and changing. I do it in ranges. This is my kind of price guide as you go through here, and you'll see dollar signs. You can kind of look at this and give an idea of like how much some of these books are worth and what they're going for, be it raw or 9.8 or that kind of thing. So I use that as kind of a guide. So let's dig in and see what we can learn about Valiant. This was a lot of new information for me. Hopefully, it gives you guys some things to think about if you're interested in this universe. All right, so first up, we got Magnus Robot Fighter #1. Now, this was a book that was a gold key character, so there's a volume 1 that is outside of Valiant. This was the first published Valiant Universe book, though, and obviously the first Magnus in Valiant. So from 1991, this was kind of the start of their universe and what they were doing. Next, we got Solar, Man of the Atom, #1. This is another character that came from outside Valiant, but has appeared here in Valiant for the first time. They're kind of the second book they kicked off. Is kind of the second character they're using as part of their new universe. Next, we have Magnus Robot Fighter #5, also from 1991. First full appearance of the first Rai, also the first who was the first original Valiant character. So Rai was the first character that they created strictly for their universe that they were going to follow. And so, yeah, this was his first appearance. As you can see, all three of these first books, very, very affordable, which is the case for most of the Valiant books. Next, we have Solar, Man of the Atom, #3, first appearance of Toyo Harada. And this is kind of our main villain of these early Valiant era, kind of the Lex Luthor of this universe. So yeah, this is our big bad, and he appears here in Solar, Man of the Atom, #3. Next, we're back to Magnus Robot Fighter, #7, first appearance of the Exo armor. We'll get into Exo Man of War in a minute, but the armor appears for the first time here. Then we get Harbinger, #1 in 1992, first appearance of the Harbinger team. Obviously, there's multiple characters whose first appearances here. This is a big book. This is one of the bigger books that we will come across or talk about tonight, or today, I should say. Yeah, a very popular book, tough book to get in a high grade, and yeah, hard to find good conditions because it had the coupons that people could cut out. So that limits it, as well as it's just like the paper quality on this one is maybe not as good. So to get this book in a high condition is a pretty tough find. Next, we have Exo Man of War #1, first appearance of Exo Man of War. So we've gotten the armor. Now we're getting the actual character here in this book, back to a very affordable book. Next, we have Magnus Robot Fighter number 12, first appearance of Turok in Valiant Comics. Turok number 1 is obviously a big kind of joke because there's so many of those that everybody like has the joke is everybody has a copy. Turok is obviously a character that's been around for a very long time. Was added to the much like Magnus and Solaire was added to the Valiant universe. They got the rights, so they added him here, and this is the first time he appears in the Valiant universe. Next, we got Exo Man of War number 4, first cameo appearance of Jack Boniface, who would become Shadow Man. This book actually goes for a little bit more than some of the others. Not a huge price on this one, but first appearance of Jack is definitely worth a little bit. And then, of course, Shadow Man number 1, also from 1992, first full appearance and origin of Shadow Man here. So another original Valiant character jumping in at this point. Next, we have Solaire, Man of the Atom, number 10. This is that black cover, super hard to find. So this one is obviously one of the big books in the whole run here because this black cover, super hard to find. I couldn't find this black embossed cover. I couldn't even find, this is the best picture I could find, like on the internet, to like show off what this color is supposed to look like. Obviously, you can't tell what it's supposed to look like here. But this is the first appearance and origin of the Eternal Warrior. And yeah, one of the maybe the biggest, but close to the biggest book in all of the Valiant run. So next we have Archer and Armstrong number 0, first appearance of Archer and Armstrong. So 2 more characters that have become known with this universe appearing here. Also a very affordable key. We got Eternal Warrior number 4, first cameo of Bloodshot and first appearance of the Immortal Enemy. So yeah, 2 characters we got here hopping in. Immortal Enemy obviously hopping in, but also we're getting a cameo of Bloodshot. And then, of course, we get the first appearance of Bloodshot and this iconic cover for Rye number 0. Obviously, there are 2 versions of this. We also get the first appearance of the second Rye in origin of the second Rye in this book. The matte is obviously much cheaper than the glossy. Both of them are pretty affordable right now, much more affordable than they were around the time the Bloodshot movie was coming out. And then next, we have Bloodshot number 7, first appearance of Ninjak, another character that's they've published a lot of books around for the Valiant universe. And then we had 2 little bonuses I decided to include. These were the 2 mail-away books. This is Harbinger number 0, the pink cover. This was a coupon mail-away, limited to somewhere between 3,000 and 3,500 copies. Yeah, this is a little more expensive book than some of these other keys. Not really a huge key other than it was just a hard to find book, but I decided to include it here, as well as the Magnus Robot Fighter number 0, also a coupon mail away version. I did not find a list for how many of these were, but it goes for a similar value on this particular book. So those are the keys for the Valiant universe. Obviously, there's 17 books. There's a lot going on there. If you're wondering, like Quantum and Woody, that doesn't happen until you get into the Acclaim era. So, but those are most of the big characters that appear in this early portion of Valiant in the 90s. So if I forgot something, or there's a character you think I should have included, but I felt like I covered pretty much all the main characters that kind of support this universe through that list of books, plus those 2 mail-away books. So next, let's dig into the stories. And this is something I will say I knew absolutely nothing about. I had not read Valiant. So relying on my man Dave Mears, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus. I'm just trying to be honest about I'm recommending stuff I have not read. So let's go in here. Change to the proper thing. First up, we got Magnus Robot Fighter Steel Nation. This is issues 1 through 4 of the start of this run. So basically, the very first story arc in the Valiant universe, written by Jim Shooter. Bob Layton was the artist on this. Kind of the big first story arc. I tried to find a good description of this story, and I couldn't really find one. But I saw this recommended not just from Adam, but from a lot of like online stuff. I found this recommended quite often as one of the better stories from this era of Valiant. But I couldn't really find a good description of what was going on here. But obviously, a good place to start anyway, just because this is kind of the start of this whole universe. So a great place to dive in if you're interested in this universe. Obviously, this is a trade that I'm showing here that was published in the 90s. As far as I know, they have not published another version of this trade. We'll get into later. I'll show some of their Valiant Masterworks or whatever. So far, I haven't seen a Valiant Masterwork of this one, or I could not find one published, at least. So you may be better off just trying to find the issues than trying to find this trade. Next, we have Harbinger, Children of the Eighth Day, collecting issues 0 through 7 of Harbinger. And this is obviously, you can see here, is one of their like Valiant Master collections or Master Valiant, I forget, but this is a republication of this particular trade, also written by Jim Shooter. David Lapham is the artist on this. And obviously, this is kind of our group of teenage superpowers that kind of go on the run from our big villain, Toyo Harada. Again, I don't know a ton about these stories, but this is obviously, Harbinger is one of the more popular books in this run. And this is kind of the beginning for that run as well. Next, we have From Honor and Strength, Rye, issues 1 through 8, plus number 0. Now, this trade that I'm showing collects 1 through 8 and does not include 0, which is obviously the first appearance of Bloodshot. Interestingly enough, the trade that was published in the 90s, which is what Adam, the 90s version, is 0 through 4, so it does not have as many issues. So there's a little there. So if you find this trade that's out there, you may still have to track down issue number 1. But obviously, yeah, this is our second Rye to appear, 42nd Rye, and how he's going to choose to live in this future. David Michelini is the writer on this one. Several artists, Joe St. Pierre, Peter Graw. So yeah, this is another story. And then next we have Blood of the Machine, Bloodshot 1 through 8. You can see all these, other than that first one, all of these have been reprinted in the last decade or so by the new Valiant as Masterworks. Kevin Van Hook on the writing on this one. Ron Perlin, Andrew Wendell on artists. So yeah, this is kind of our first Bloodshot story. And then finally, we got Unity, which is the big crossover event. You can see all the issues listed there. Basically, it was Unity 1 and 0 and 1, and then 2 issues of every comic they were publishing in the universe at the time. 18 parts. Jim Shooter was the main writer, director on this, like running this event. Various artists across the titles. So yeah, this big, huge universe. This is kind of the big storyline. So maybe if you're going to read anything Valiant, maybe this is a great place to start, and a great, probably maybe the best story from this era of Valiant. So that is our stories. Like I said, don't know a ton about any of those personally. Got recommendations, not just from Adam, but the stuff I found online said he was basically right. So, so I followed pretty much through with what he told me. So everything I found did not contradict him. Any of the other stories were listed as great Valiant stories were mostly from the new era since 2015, I think. I think we launched that. So yeah, all the other good stories were more modern stuff from that era of Valiant. Those were the stories. So let's move into the covers. So we're going to dig into our fun covers, and let me get those pulled up. Oh. So first up, we're going to talk about the Unity storyline. So I talked about it was like Unity 0, Unity 1, which is basically the first and 18th part of this story arc. The first round of all the titles had interlocking covers done by Frank Miller. You can see them here. I got the whole image up on the screen. All of these books, super affordable, not hard to get. None of them are super expensive. But as far as I can tell, if not, this isn't the first kind of connecting cover of this form. One of the very first connecting covers of this form that Valiant was doing here in 1992. If you know of something like connecting covers like this that were done, they called them interlocking. If you know something about this beforehand, let me know. But as far as I could find, I think this might be the first. And then they did it again for the second issue of Everyone. This one, the art was done by Walt Simonson. And you can see, again, these covers go across all of the 8 titles, making a single image, kind of an early connecting cover approach. So now we got those out of the way. Again, super affordable. All the parts of the Unity storyline, super affordable. Thought this was just kind of a fun, if you're wanting to get into Valiant, a fun way to kind of dive in and collect these interlocking covers. Next, the rest of these are just covers that I kind of like. A few of them are actually worth a little bit. But this was just me looking through covers that I kind of like, that I thought were fun. We got Harbinger number 7 from 1992, this David Lapham cover. I just thought it was super cool in the graveyard, the way that the lighting on the character at the grave, the shadows. I thought this was a super cool cover. One of my favorite ones. Actually, I think this is the only Harbinger cover that made my particular list. I'm sure others will have different choices. I really enjoyed the Solaire Man of the Atom number 27 by Jimmy Palmiotti with the the campfire, the way the smoke and the light is coming, the embers are coming off the campfire. I think this is a super cool cover. I think it's one, I really, really like this particular cover. Next, we have XO Man of War, number 32 by Rick Levins and Catherine Bollinger. One of the more clever uses of the title that I think I've ever seen, with the shadow on the ground and with them at the grave, like in the background. I think this is a super cool way to do the title, put it on the ground like this. I just thought this was super cool. I really, really like this. I have not seen many covers kind of that do it like this, or anything quite like this before. I thought this was great, and kind of having them in the shadow and the light, depending on where they are in the XO Man of War part, I thought was super cool. Next, we have Eternal Warrior number 35, and this one actually had a page over the top of it, so parental warning advised, because obviously we got just an arm. You can't really see the wound or anything, but I thought this was a really cool way to give stakes to a character like the Eternal Warrior, who's practically, immortal. So I thought this was a really cool cover. I thought this was well done by Paul Gluency. Next, we got Magnus Robot Fighter number 56. There's several of, this is the first of several that kind of incorporate that red spot for Bloodshot into these covers. I thought this was really cool by David Ross and Dick Giordano from 1995. Also, super affordable cover. Here we have Magnus Robot Fighter number 64, the final issue of this run. Obviously, this one's worth a little bit more because it is the final issue. There's a couple of these final issues that are worth a little bit more for these books because they were lower print. Keith Giffen, Kevin Kubasik make this cover one of the better, walking into, we actually got kind of a sunset sky and stuff on this one, like a real sky, a real kind of background that you don't always get when people walking away. I thought this was one of the better versions of this particular trope in terms of as a cover. I really like this one. Next, we got Bloodshot number 46 by Norm Brayfogle. Just a great silhouette with the red, with the fire, with all the shells from the guns. Just thought this was a really, really cool cover. Next, we got Bloodshot number 51 by Sean Chen. Another kind of homage. We got the big to Bloodshot or Rye number 0 with him holding the big skull above his head in the red spot. I just think this is a super cool one. Also, the final issue of this original run of Bloodshot, so also worth a little bit more. And then finally, I don't usually use keys as in my covers or repeat them, but I did repeat the Rise Zero cover by Jim, because I just want to talk about it. Jim Shooter, who is not an artist, is responsible for this cover. He basically used a Punisher drawing by Mike Zeck that he did to get the outline, obviously, and it is the iconic cover. When you think of Valiant, you think of this book, you think of this cover. Obviously, I used it for the thumbnail here. So I thought I would include it as well. Jim Shooter, fully on, he's it's from Mike Zeck. I used his Punisher drawing to kind of come up with this concept to do the outline, and it works really, really well. It's a really spectacular cover from non-artist Jim Shooter. So that is our breakdown of 90s Valiant. If you're not familiar with it, hope you got something out of this. Give a quick shout out to my members. Appreciate all of them for keeping the channel going and keep me going. And you can see my 2 Nightwing tier members, He Remains, who actually requested this topic, and my boy Daymares, who helped me out with his vast knowledge of Valiant. So with that, we're going to get out of here. 20 minutes, a little longer on these videos doing it this way, but I hope you guys got some great information, and we will catch you next time. Later.